Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. This is the Kane County Transportation Committee. It's Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve our minutes from September 21st,
Roll call.
2021, after we do roll call.
Iqbal,
You interrupted me.
Berman,
Berman here.
Kenyon,
Here.
Caius,
Guy is present.
Gopi,
Pope is present.
Wojnicki,
Present.
Martin,
Martin present.
Pirog, Shepro, Ross,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Okay, and I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve our minutes from
Caius
September
move.
2021.
Wodnicki seconds.
Caius moves, Wodnicki seconds. Any changes or alterations, corrections? Seeing none, roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal, Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Guys, yes.
Gopi,
Pope, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Shepro, Ross.
Yes. Minutes are approved. Is there any public comment? Is there anybody in person or online who would like to address the committee? No one online? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 4, that we're going to have our couple of budget presentations from both PACE and Metro. We're going to start with PACE presenting their 2022 budget. So we'll go to Mayor Shelkey, who is online, I believe.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I just want to thank the King County Board for your continued support of Pace Bus in our various endeavors here through the pandemic. One of the things I wanted to share, the presentation we're going to do is going to be done by Rocky Donahue, who's the Executive Director of Pace Bus, and he's over at our office in Arlington Heights, and I see where he's tuned in here. And also we've got on the line with us Melinda Metzger, who's our Director of Operations. And so between the two of them, they can answer any question that any board member may have. I just want to say that, I appreciate the support that we've gotten from Kane County over the last few years. We've been able to do some innovative things. One of them that we're very proud of is the Bus on the Shoulder program that we're running on I-90 from starting out in Randall Road west of Elgin and going into the transportation center at Rosemont, which allows people then to transfer over and commute to downtown if necessary, or to take a shuttle into the O'Hare Airport from the Rosemont train or transportation center. So those are very innovative things. I think our hopes are the day will come and we'll have a similar operation on I-88, starting probably out at Sugar Grove and again going in toward the city and probably in toward the CTA train at River Forest, I guess it is right next to the Eisenhower in there, but that's still years away. But we are hopefully got our vision that will be in the long-term plan. The one comment I would like to make about Kane County operations is that we do have a little bit of a challenge for ourselves in Aurora, because as most of you know, Aurora is in 4 counties. And one of the, they're in Kane and DuPage and Will. And those are all good because those are all 3 of those counties are members of the RTA and pay the RTA sales tax. Then we get ourselves into this very unique situation in Kendall County, where I believe we have over 10,000 people in Aurora living, but they are not in the RTA service area and are not paying the sales tax. So therefore, the RTA has instructed that we do not respond buses into the RTA portion of the city of Aurora. And I've gotten people called me and have expressed concern about it, but till the Kendall County Board takes an action and probably has a referendum down there and votes to put Kendall County into the RTA, that's going to be a very problematic scene down there, both on the PACE and the Metro side, because there's no money, no sales tax coming in, and that sales tax is what is supporting the operations of both the trains and the buses in whatever county it's in. So that's an important factor that Kendall County's got to come to some realization. So I'm going to have to get off here in a little bit because, as some of you know, I'm chairman of the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning's Council of Mayors which is based in downtown Chicago. And today is the date of our quarterly meeting. So I have to run that meeting starting at 9:30. So I'll be stepping off, but Rocky and Melinda will be here with you if anybody needs any further information. But I'm going to turn this over to Rocky Donahue now. And does anybody on the county board have any particular question of me before I do that?
Any questions for Mayor Shelkey? Doesn't look like it, Mayor, so thank you very much, and we'll excuse you and turn it over to Rocky then.
Very good. Rocky, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor Shelkey and members of the Kane County Board. Thank you for this opportunity to be with you today. I apologize I got there in person, but I have back-to-back Zoom meetings and didn't allow me to be there. So I'm going to briefly go over our proposed 2022 budgets. I can tell you we've endured the challenges that we were faced with during the pandemic, and I'm happy to tell you this may be the probably best budget I can tell you we may have ever presented in the history of our organization, which goes back to 1984. And so what do I mean by that? The most positive, best budget we've ever presented on. We are going to be putting in $15 million of new or restored service. This is the largest increase of service in our history. Out of that 15 million, $7 million is going into the fixed route service of new and restored fixed route service. We're going to put $5 million into regional TNC, Uber, Lyft, micro transit projects. And we're going to be putting an additional $3 million into our demand response system. How do we break that $3 million up is all of our current dial-a-ride partners, and there's a number in Kane County, are each going to get a 15% increase in their PACE funding. That'll total about $1 million. We're also going to do $1 million of again, a TNC, Uber, Lyft pilot for dial-a-ride and ADA. We have in the city of Chicago a taxi access program for our ADA service in the city of Chicago. We've often been asked in the suburbs, why can't we have such a thing out here? The reality is the taxi systems in the suburb aren't as consolidated, coordinated. In some areas there aren't taxis, but there are Ubers and Lyfts everywhere. So the idea is to present this opportunity for dial-a-ride, similar to the city of Chicago, where they would pay a fare and we would subsidize a big portion of their trip. And then the big news is we are going to be offering a grant to each of the collar counties, Kane County being one of them, of $200,000 to assist the counties in implementing or enhancing their countywide dial-a-ride program. So in Kane, I know you have Ride in Kane. Besides our current subsidies that we are providing Ride in Kane, we'll be offering a $200,000 grant to Kane County to assist with that as well. We also will be doing a $10 million electric bus pilot. This is going to take place at our North Division in Waukegan. And our goal is to have the North Division be all electric by the end of 2026. We're going to spend $50 million on electric buses over the next 5 years. This is the largest amount of funding within our 5-year capital program for replacing vehicles. And our board just adopted a goal to transition our entire fleet, not just in Waukegan, but Elgin, Aurora, Cook County, the entire system to be a zero emission fleet by 2040. 2022, we're going to continue our largest capital infrastructure expansion. We have $300 million plus of Rebuild Illinois projects going on. And in Kane County, we're expanding our River Division garage in Elgin. We just purchased the property immediately south of the existing garage. And we plan to increase the facility that'll allow us to incorporate, as Mayor Shelkey pointed out, our I-90 Express service. We are currently leasing a facility in East Dundee. We'll be bringing that to our Elgin facility, so we'll be able to get out of that lease. We'll have the buses being serviced and maintained right there. This expansion will allow 68 additional vehicles to be in our Elgin facility. And it is also being, my term, retrofitted, built in to convert eventually that facility to an all-electric facility. So for Kane County specifically, our Dial-A-Ride partners are going to receive a 15% increase in funding. We're going to be implementing $7 million of fixed route service throughout the region, and I'm sure some of that will go into Kane County. We're going to be subsidizing Uber and Lyft trips, both on the fixed route side and on the paratransit side of the house. And the county will receive a $200,000 grant to help with your Ride and Cane program. And we are going to have the construction project of the expansion of our River Division garage in Elgin. And all this is being done with no fare increase on our passengers. On your screen, we are having our Kane County budget public meeting. That will be an in-person meeting on October 26th from 4 to 6 at the Kane County Government Center, Building A in your community room. We thank you for allowing us to host that there. And with that, I know I went rather quickly, but I know you have a busy agenda, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that any of you may have.
Okay, thanks a lot. Any
Question,
questions?
Copy?
Mr. Copey, go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman. My question is in regards to the ridership. Has the ridership increased? I know there was quite a hit on the during this COVID onslaught. And is that beginning to wane? And then the other question is the offset in ridership fees? How does that compare to expense?
Sure, great questions. Thank you, sir. So ridership, I'm happy to say, is starting to bounce back. We are not at pre-pandemic levels. To kind of give you a perspective, prior to the pandemic, in our system, total system, we used to do about 100,000 trips a day. Prior to the pandemic, at the height of the pandemic, we were doing 30,000 trips a day. So we were down about 70%. Today, we're at about 66,000 trips. So we prior to the pandemic, we were at 100, dropped down to 30. We've clawed ourselves back to 66, and it is continuing to grow. I don't think we're going to get close to that 100,000 probably for at least another 12 months. But slowing it down, quite honestly, is our work trips. A lot of employees are still telecommuting, and we're not seeing those trips coming back. But the good news is we are seeing some steady ridership growth. To your question of how are we offsetting, what I guess the question is, hey, your ridership's down. What about the fares you would have normally collected? We received federal stimulus money, CARES funding, CRISA funding, and that has offset those loss in fares. And a good portion of that funding is what we are using to kind of build back the system better and allowing us to provide more funding to our partners. We're taking that money and getting it back to the community.
So
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I have another question. This
Go ahead.
copy. The other question was in dollars. Can you quantify that in any way?
The question of how big is our budget or how many dollars have we lost out of the fare box? I'm not sure what you're asking. What dollar amount are you asking for, sir?
I think he was asking, as far as the ridership going up and down, has your dollars paralleled that as far as your income?
Yeah, our fare box revenue, similarly in under pre-COVID, we would collect about $60 million out of the fare box. When it went down, when our ridership dropped 70%, that fare box revenue dropped roughly not quite 70%, but about $30 million that we were able to offset with the CARES funding we received. Right, we're at about maybe $40 million now out of the fare box, so we're still down, and we're offsetting it with CARES funding. It's The fare box is down about $20 million. Surprisingly, we're funded by a regional sales tax, and sales tax is up. And a big piece of that, and I give a lot of credit to Director Shelkey and also to Kane County. I don't know, you might recall a couple years ago, we were an initiative, we felt we needed to get a share of online sales. And fortunately, the General Assembly passed that before COVID hit. And so our funding from sales tax is up, which has also helped offset the loss we've had in the fare box. But we've been able to make up the fare box revenue from federal stimulus.
Excuse me, the question that I'm trying to establish, the point I'm trying to establish, or the information I'm trying to collect here is, what is the cost versus the income?
So the cost of public transportation, and it doesn't make money. I think that's what we all know, that it's subsidized by tax dollars. As a region, we have to recover by law 50% of our costs from the fare box. We're obviously not doing that during COVID. So the cost in normal situations is about, for the region, is 50%. For every dollar we spend on public transit, the taxpayers pay 50 cents and the rider pays 50 cents. With ridership down, that number is probably closer right now region-wide to 30%, where for every dollar we're spending on public transit, the taxpayers paying 70% in the region and the riders are paying 30%. But obviously, as we grow ridership back, those numbers will level out again. And that offset was from our federal government, who's provided the subsidies to get us through these times.
Does that answer your question,
Okay.
Mr. Copey?
It does. 70-30%, that'll work for now. I still have a question on but we can move on the actual quantized dollars. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Copey. Mr. Caius had a question.
Yes, I had a question about the electrical buses. Are you charging the buses with renewable energy? You know where the electric?
Yep, great question. We haven't purchased those vehicles yet, and we'll be going out for bid on this now. And that technology is constantly changing. We are looking at electric now, but we actually call it zero emission fleets. And if I didn't say that, I will apologize. And because we've seen hydrogen cells being used, as you know, batteries have come a long way. They're primarily lithium batteries right now. And there are some challenges from a cost perspective and renewable energy and how do you dispose of these batteries. At this point in time, I think we'd probably be looking at lithium batteries, but the technology is changing almost on a daily basis.
Follow up, do you know when you said you targeted Elgin for all electric? You know what the timeline for that is?
It would be many years down the road. Between now and 2026, so over the next 5 years, 22, 23, 24, 25, and 26, we will be using Waukegan as kind of our pilot to learn and get best practices from. And then after 2026, we would be expanding throughout the region to what we learned, quite honestly, from Waukegan.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Martin, did you still have a question? That's been answered. Any other questions from the committee? Okay, if not, Mr. Donahue, thanks for your presentation, and we also appreciate the partnership and look forward to continuing.
Thank you, and I apologize, I'm going to have to get off, but thanks again, and as you guys know, we're here for you, and as you mentioned, the partnership, so if we can help in any way, please feel free to reach out to us. Okay,
thanks for being here today. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5. This is our Metra 2022 budget presentation. We'll start out with Mr. Joe McMahon, who's our King County representative on the Metra board. You can introduce the other members of the Metro team.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting us to present Metro's proposed 2022 budget to the County Transportation Committee. I'm Joe McMahon. I'm your appointee to the Metro Board.
You have no volume, Mr. Chairman.
Is mic on?
We're correcting that right now. Go ahead, Joe.
Are you want me to start over?
No, just go ahead.
I'm joined this morning by Dimitri Skoufis from Metra and Arsenio Pomalis. Metra has enjoyed a great relationship with Kane County. We value that relationship and rely on your support significantly. Metra is the largest commuter railroad in the nation based on miles of track and one of the largest based on ridership. Metra's primary mission is to provide safe, reliable, and efficient commuter rail service that enhances the economic and environmental health of the entire Northeast Illinois region. The Metro service area encompasses 6-county region and more than 3,700 square miles. Kane County is well served by that service with 3 lines originating in Elgin at Big Timber, another line, the UP West line, originating in Elburn, having stops in LaFox and in Geneva, and then a 3rd line involving the Burlington Northern Santa Fe that originates in Aurora. Metra has a proposed $900 million operating budget for 2022 and a $263 million capital budget. Importantly, there is no fare increase for riders in the 2022 budget. The Metra Board approved this budget preliminarily at its October 13th board meeting. We will have that budget posted for public comment, and it will be posted. We'll have an open meeting here on November 3rd from 4 to 7 p.m. in the lower level of this building that will allow for public comment here in Kane County. Our operating budget really makes conservative assumptions about ridership growth. Last year, our ridership level was at about 25% of pre-pandemic levels. It makes what I would call very conservative assumptions about growth, both for the remainder of this year and next year, increasing to maybe 33% through 2022. To incentivize and attract new riders to Metra, we have proposed a new $6 day pass that will be valid for unlimited rides within 3 zones for a full day. The new pass will be offered as a 1-year pilot program, in addition to the current 10-day day pass, which is valid for unlimited travel across all 10 fare zones on Metra. The $900 million operating budget assumes the agency will begin, as I said, with ridership at about 25% of pre-pandemic levels and finish the year hopefully around 33, 34, or 35%. Leading to a projection of $146.4 million for fares and other system-generated revenue. The budget will also use approximately $458 million in revenue from the RTA sales tax and another $202 million from COVID relief funding. As part of our budget, we will request another $92.8 million in COVID relief funding from the RTA Authority, or the Regional Transportation Authority, which is responsible for distributing another round of federal aid to Metra and the other service board agencies. Our 2022 budget is 16% higher than it was in 2021, which was approximately $773 million. This increase is most attributable to the planned restoration of service levels across all 11 service lines in the 6-county region to pre-pandemic levels. Currently, our service is being provided at about 80%, though it varies by line. Inflation, contractual costs, including healthcare, utilities, insurance are also contributing factors to that increase in our proposed budget. Our 2022 capital budget is nearly $263 million, which I indicated, and it reflects a significant investment in rail cars, locomotives, bridges, and stations, based on what is really a multi-billion-dollar backlog of state of good repair of our equipment and infrastructure needs across all 11 lines in the 6-county region. I anticipate locally here in Kane County that the UP West 3rd main line will be bid sometime in the next 6 months. And that involves a 3rd track of rail line between West Chicago and Peck Road, and should help us eliminate the bottleneck of train traffic that riders experience and improve on-time performance in both directions. I would also point out that last month, the Metra Board of Directors authorized the issuance of an RFP for alternative fuel locomotives in an effort to explore non-diesel fuel engines for use in the commuter rail system. Commuter rail systems in other parts of the world have been successful in adopting this new technology to power shorter distance and smaller trains. And both the staff at Metra and the board are committed to exploring alternative fuel sources that improve both efficiency and reduce the environmental impact of diesel-fueled locomotive engines on the environment. We passed out a full summary of the budget. I should have all received a copy of that on your desk this morning. With that, I can turn it over to you, Mr. Chairman, and try to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any questions on the Metra situation? Mr. Martin?
I'm not 100% certain this is a productive question, but I'm strongly supportive of a good public transportation system. But the bread and butter of the revenue for that system and its utilization are the commuters. And by anybody's estimation, we're really undergoing some structural changes. And I guess my question, if I was asking this question of Pace, they could say, well, we're going to use smaller buses. You still have to operate on the same tracks with the same equipment. The federal spigot is, it's a constant for as long as it's there, but it's not going to be there forever, the COVID-related relief. I assume that there are plans in place, or that there's a thought process in place for how we deal with what might be the long-term change in our ridership. I mean, we can't, the system isn't going to get a lot of money from people going to the Art Institute or the Cubs game, particularly this year with the Cubs. And I say it's not a productive question, but to me, it's a big concern. How do we stay viable? Tax as we should to support it if the ridership is going to take a perpetual decrease in dollar amount.
So by statute, our budget has to maintain a 52.5% kind of split between revenue and support from various federal tax bases, federal agencies, state funding, et cetera. This budget for 2022 meets that split. We certainly track ridership over each of the last several years. Ridership pre-pandemic, I had those specific numbers in the budget, around the mid 70 million trips per day. At the kind of the lowest point over the last year and a half, we saw ridership as low as 5%. That has steadily returned, kind of driving through Geneva this morning. Some of my colleagues went through the parking deck. I have seen the parking lots in Elgin, and of course here locally as well. And this is anecdotal, I understand that, but we are starting to see a return to not normalcy, but we're seeing an increase in ridership levels across all 11 lines in the service area. We project over the next couple of years that ridership will return, maybe not to pre-pandemic levels, but some of the ways that we're looking at addressing that shortfall and that reduction of revenue are shorter trains, looking at schedules that might help us control our cost a little bit. So while we do have to continue to run trains on the same lines and there are certain fixed costs, there are ways that we can try to reduce those operating expenses by possibly running fewer trains in the middle of the day when there's not as high of a demand. shortening the distance of trains. Longer term, looking at a more efficient way to operate locomotives, whether it's through alternative fuel engines. And those are some of the options that we're looking at to be more efficient and reduce our operating expenses going forward, given the change in the way people commute and change in the place where people commute to. We're not seeing as many people commute into center city locations. And how are we going to address that? These are some of the ways that we've explored addressing those challenges.
Okay, thank you, Joe.
Copy,
Mr.
please.
Mr. Copey, go ahead.
Thank you. My question is similar to the last gentleman in regards to Pace's budget, and I did not take the time to read the budget, Joe. And I don't expect you to pull this number out of off your cuff, but and I understand that too. But I'll give it a chance. In regards to total budget versus total fares income, what is that number?
So in what you were asking that question earlier, Mr. Copey, I went through our budget so I would try to at least have an answer for you that I think is to your question. In our 2021 budget, our passenger revenue from ticket sales was $76.2 million. In our 2022 budget, we projected that revenue will increase to $109.8 million, or approximately a 44% growth based on what we think are those conservative ridership estimates.
Does that answer your
Okay, now
question? Go
no,
ahead.
not quite.
Go ahead.
Not quite. Thank you. So in relation to that number, so those millions that how does that, how is that compared to the total expense of Metra's system?
So that would approximate a little more than 10% of the total budget as to the source of funds. On the budget handbook that we passed out, our proposed operating and capital program and budget, on page 5, there's a funding overview that kind of gives a pie chart of the source of funds. Passenger revenue would equal about 10% for the 2022 budget.
Excellent. I'll look into that. Thank you very much.
Mr. Copey, we'll make sure that the materials we receive today will be placed in your mailbox. Mr. Copey, Mr. Caius?
The other K. Mr. Caius, yeah, Caius, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Can you flesh out just a little bit, maybe I missed it, that I commend the increased flexibility, like the $6 rate. What do you see, who do you see taking advantage of that? And have you done some research, some consumer research to show that what they'll be doing approximately?
So really that is for, we have done some research on that, and that is for passengers that are not going into the downtown Chicago. So really people who are commuting between suburbs that might link our service with another public transportation service, or, you know, maybe traveling from here in Kane County from Geneva to Wheaton, or Aurora to Naperville, or really a suburb to suburb transportation. I don't, as I stand here, I don't have an estimate as to what percentage of ridership are going, not the full length of the train line, but really going from, you know, within 2 or 3 zones.
And is that day trips? Is that commuting for work?
That is day
Primarily?
trips. Yes, sir.
So it might be just a family out for to visit the neighbors, or?
It's both. Day trips meaning commuter day trips, people that are going back and forth for work purposes, and other people who might go from Geneva to Wheaton, or Elburn to West Chicago for just for a day trip, for a social
Personal,
outing or
yeah.
dinner or something like that, right?
Anecdotally, in my house, we went from my wife going in daily year round to now once a month, and
Mhm.
possibly in January back up to 3 days a week or something like that, maybe.
And certainly our projections initially earlier in the year, and as you know, I was appointed to this board in May, so I immersed myself over the last 5, 6 months. And early in the summer, we anticipated, certainly not a return to normal levels of ridership, but around Labor Day, we thought we would see a significant increase. And then there have been other issues that have come up related to variants and changes in return to work policies and some of the larger employers in the city of Chicago and elsewhere as well. And that has impacted our ridership projections into this time of the year. So like you, we expect maybe after the first of the year, we'll see another bump in ridership. But there's so much uncertainty, and that's one reason why we have projected really conservatively how we think ridership growth will improve into 2022, but certainly nowhere near what it was in 2019.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thank you. You too.
Any other questions for Mr. McMahon? Anybody
Bates,
online?
please.
Ms. Bates, go ahead.
So is there data or surveys that we can look at about what employers think they will be doing in the near future in terms of you have to come into the office or you don't have to come into the office?
So there's nothing that I have this morning or that I have that I can direct you to, and I don't know. I don't know that I have seen or heard actual surveys or policies that have been shared either with the executive staff or Metra or at the board. I know a lot of the information that we get is from our executive team meeting with some of the large employers, meeting with the economic groups across the 6-county region, and I suppose in that regard, it's less survey-based and more anecdotal, but this is based on conversations from community leaders, business leaders across the region.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think
thank you.
Mavis, Mr. Rickard has a little insight on that.
Oh,
Yeah, I
okay.
just wanted to mention that this is an ongoing discussion at the regional level. CMAP is working diligently. They have economic recovery as well as mobility recovery task force where they're really starting to look into this and looking at ways to kind of address or offset some of the structural changes that Mr. Martin referred to. And so this is a concern. It's an ongoing discussion at the regional level that they're hoping and looking at ways to address.
Okay, so we'll leave it to some of the larger umbrella organizations that to get data that will affect all of the transportation providers. Any other questions? Online, in
Mr.
person?
Chairman,
Who's that?
this is Mo Iqbal.
Yeah, Mr. Iqbal, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'm just joining late. Maybe the question has been asked. The chairman of Metra or the president of Metra, CEO, has been given a raise among this pandemic when the revenues have gone down. I'd like to ask Mr. McMahon, how did he justify voting for it?
So what the CEO of Metra did receive a raise. It was his first increase since, I believe, 2017. What we did, there was an executive compensation committee that was put together. We looked at how executives of other commuter railroad service boards across the country, and we looked at our peers. As I indicated at the start of my comments, Metra is the largest commuter railroad in the nation. For those of you that follow the railroad industry, the complexity of the railroad in the Midwest and specifically in and around the city of Chicago is really the most complex in the entire United States. And so we looked at the size of Metra, the scale of his responsibility. We looked at his peers in New York. We looked at his peer in Los Angeles, Boston, the city of Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. And my recollection is that those are the 5 comparables that we looked at. And the CEO's compensation was at or below, really below those others, given the fact that the CEO had not received any raise at all since 2017. It's really never a good time when times are difficult economically to give raises, but the board and I concurred in that decision. I felt that the raise was justified. He earned it, given his responsibility, given the complexity of the job and the size and scope of the Metro Railroad.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Iqbal?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Hearing none, I'd like to thank you, Joe, and doing a great job. I know we kind of threw you into the fire and you hit the ground running.
That's been great.
And I'd like to thank the teams, both the Metro team and the PACE team, for presenting today and taking the time to be here. So
Thank you. It's
thank
great
you
to
very
see you.
much and keep up the good work.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to item number 6, our finance report to Tom.
You have the finance report in front of you. I do not at this time have anything to add, except for that we are starting to work on our 5-year financial plan, as well as we are starting to work on the 2-cent county motor fuel tax, which is part of the overall budget. And we intend to have that before this committee next month, as per the direction that it appears everything's heading budget-wise. So we will continue to watch that over the course of the next few weeks. And
Okay, any question for Tom, Mr. Kenyon?
I don't often get comments over the phone, but this one brought comments because of the increased number of and the size of the trucking companies that have come out to Kane County. I think R&L must have doubled their place in Elgin. And what's the other one?
Mhm.
XPO too. The only way they will support this is if the money goes to improve the transportation. And I assure him that's what I thought we would use that money for roads and bridges and stuff.
yeah, I mean,
We'll have to make that, so the newspapers get it right. Good luck with that.
that's the primary purpose of the funds, is in order to be able to proceed forward with our capital
And
program.
the increase applies to both diesel fuel and gasoline equally. And of course, with the trucking, they pay, $8,000 per vehicle for license plates every year. So a lot of that goes to the roads also. But yeah, there has been a big uptick in trucking growth especially up in the north end. So any other questions on the finance?
Copy, please.
Mr. Copey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tom, I've been trying to hone in on some of the finance and executive committee meetings. There's a lot of work that's being done outside of the committee meetings, obviously. And by the time it hits the committee meetings, it's rendered down into it's already rendered down into resolutions many times. And the question I have is, I understand that everybody is, all the departments, I should say, are compromising to an extent to put forth a budget for this next year. And what exactly, and what pertains to me, of course, since I'm on the Transportation Committee, is what exactly did we compromise on that budget in dollars and percentage-wise, year over last?
I guess if I understand the question correctly, the primary way that that we were able to proceed forward with the overall budget of the county, the general fund, was that there was a need to transfer some of the transportation sales tax dollars over to the general fund. And so that's something that the county board is proceeding forward with. That's part of the public comment period. And then that's essentially being replaced with the county motor fuel tax increase in order to keep the transportation whole and in order to have funds to proceed forward with additional capital projects.
Would it be safe to say there is no net difference then?
No, I think overall, at least initially, there's actually a slight increase for transportation that we're going to be able to utilize for some of these projects that, as you know, our transportation improvement program, the 5-year financial plan, we had about $190 million shortfalls for some of the projects that the county board has us currently working on. And so this will allow us to start addressing a couple of those projects.
Thank you.
Historically, KDOT's always been a separate budget from the rest of the county because of the way we're funded. But historically, over the last several years, KDOT has tried to be a team player, has been a team player in the budget process, and in very round figures to the tune of about $1 million per budget. So we've always tried to do that, but in this case, with the motor fuel tax, we did that, but we'll also be maybe being made whole or close to whole with the extra revenue from the tax increase. So other questions on the finance report? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 7A, maintenance report.
You have the report in front of you. I do not have anything to add to it. We're starting to prepare for our winter activities.
Routine fall budget or maintenance report. Item 7B, that's our first resolution. This is approving the purchase of non-OEM auto parts and supplies. This is an annual resolution we do. I'll need a motion in a second. Mr. Berman moves, Mr. Caius seconds. Tom?
Yeah, we worked with purchasing, and this is in order for us to continue forward. It is a second contract extension, and so staff is recommending approval.
Okay, questions or comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman.
Dr. Iqbal, go ahead.
Yeah, I sent you an email regarding federal requirement for the pandemic or the vaccine mandate, as it's called. It applies to all the contracts that apply that have federal fund. I don't know if this resolution or this contract has federal fund. And if you could give us some summary of what you found and where we are on that compliance.
Yeah, I think at this point in time, there's still a lot of discussions going on trying to understand exactly how this applies to each and every agency. There are some interpretations that go far beyond just the contractual engineering services or the construction services, that it might mean even more than that. So it's something that I think we need to explore a little bit more. There's not a quick answer to it.
Okay. So at this point, Tom, we're still trying to determine if it affects things, how it affects them, and how to apply it if it does need to be applied. Yeah.
Yes.
So I guess Dr. Iqbal at this point would just be saying we're in the research stage and have not been applying that yet.
Okay. As long as you keep on researching, I have some material, I can send it to Tom.
Yeah, no, I recall you were at a engineering seminar and that was discussed, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think this is a regional issue. We're going to hear a lot about it over the next 30 days probably, and we'll see what the impacts are, because some of the interpretations of it are even more wide-reaching than just some of the contractual consultants or contractors. Well, I don't want to say too much because I think there's still a lot of interpretation going on.
I guess I would add, this particular contract is all local funding, so there's no federal funding involved.
Okay,
Oh, okay, good.
that was Director Scheidel. Okay, if there's no other questions, we'll do the roll call on the resolution.
Berman,
yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kopey,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Shepro, Frost.
Yes.
Passes.
Resolution passes. Item 8, planning and programming report. Tom?
You have the report in front of you. We continue to work on our comprehensive road improvement plan as part of the impact fee update. This is something that's going to come together over the next couple months fairly quickly. And so there's a number of meetings with the Impact Fee Advisory Committee, as well as this committee will see some of those efforts. And ultimately, in a few months, the county board has to either approve or not approve, or approve with modification. And so we'll get that figured out over the next few months. I also just wanted to mention too that we have some new staff on board. We have a new planning liaison, which I believe you met last month. And then we also, Crystal Spracklin. Crystal is over there.
Welcome.
Crystal is our new ride and cane coordinator. And I'm introducing her so that you know that this is real. Kane County is taking over the ride and cane program, and Crystal has a lot of experience with riding cane, so it was great that we were able to get her on board, and we hope this is a smooth transition over the next couple months. This is also an area that you'll see some contracts moving forward with PACE and in regards to our federal funds that we'll be receiving through the RTA. And that's all I have for the planning programming update.
Questions for Tom? If none, welcome, Crystal. We'll move on to our permitting report.
All right, the report's in front of you. I don't have anything to add to that. As always, if you have any questions in regards to some of our permitting activities, I hopefully can answer some questions.
Okay. If you have any questions on any of the individual projects, maybe talk to Tom. And then we'll move on to our first resolution under permitting, approving a temporary ride-in, ride-out access on Randall Road across from Grandview Drive, where Grandview Drive is near Algonquin. So I have a motion and a second. Mr. Caius moves.
I'll second.
Ms. Wodnicki seconds. Tom?
I brought this before committee for discussion purposes last month, and it's in regards to a development that is proceeding forward in the village of Algonquin. As I mentioned last month, the access points for this development have already been approved, except for one access point, and that's the right-in, right-out across from Grandview Drive. This access point is on the southern end of the proposed development, and ultimately someday in the future will also be a permanent access point for the village of Carpentersville for development south of the right-in, right-out. Carpentersville's intention is to seek a full access at that time. And that's why we're at this point in time, we're requesting approval for a temporary right-in, right-out in order to proceed forward. So staff is recommending approval.
Okay, questions or comments? Mr. Caius?
Caius here. Yeah, just to confirm that meets the requirements of our KDOT, that we have this plenty of room between the intersections and it's across from Grandview.
Yep, this meets our spacing requirement. It's in general conformance. Our spacing requirements in this area is about quarter-mile spacing. And so even the full access point, I believe it's a little bit less than a quarter-mile spacing, but it's all in conformance with what was previously approved by the county board. I believe it's around 950 to 1,000 feet or something.
And North Point what is that? That's a corporation, or it says the North Point Algonquin campus?
Yeah, it's a development group.
Oh, okay, so it's going to be commercial.
This is a mixture. Most of the buildings that you see there are for more like warehouse, industrial type use. And so some more trucks in the area and such. The frontage in the southwest corner, that is for commercial ultimately. At this point in time, though, there's nothing proposed for it. It's just left open for those commercial purposes.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. If there's no more questions.
Copy, please.
Mr. Copy?
Thank you. Tom, is this this is a newly proposed project? And how does it coincide with 5-year plan?
This is a project that's been moving forward through the village of Algonquin, probably in the last 4 or 5 months. That's just an estimate. In regards to the roadway improvements in this area, the roadway improvements are generally in place. I mean, ultimately, there is an intergovernmental agreement where Huntley Road further to the west would be improved more, but none of that's within our 5-year plan. Everything that's needed for this development, the developer is proceeding forward with, including their appropriate share of impact fees, as well as the widening of Randall Road on their side of the road. You can see along Randall Road that they're putting in the 3rd southbound lane as part of the development purposes.
So they are paying,
I was,
they're paying their share of the impact fees, and then the engineering standards of KDOT are all being met. This is going through the Algonquin as far as, they're the authority as far as the construction. It's not a county project as far as construction.
oh, I see. So you're just releasing the impact fee.
Well, I'm just saying that the actual development is being approved by the village of Algonquin, not King County development, but the transportation, all related issues are being done by KDOT, and they are paying their impact fees and meet all of our standards.
Mr. Chairman.
Excuse me.
Okay, Mr. Caius?
Do I
I think that
do I
Ms.
still have the
Caius,
floor?
Go ahead, Mr. Copey.
I just wanted to, I'm just trying to compare the ideals between a project that goes online with 4 or 5 months worth of discussion and how a project like, for example, Galligan Road, Freeman, Powers, that whole corridor up and through there is it needs to be rendered to the 5-year plan. And if there was a way that we could fast track that project up there, and we don't need to have that discussion here, I guess. Thank you.
Yeah, these improvements here are being done by the developers as a part of the conditions of access. The Galligan project is within our 5-year plan. It's the typical process for any government project where we need right-of-way, the engineering and the acquisition of right-of-way, as well as the construction. It's typically a 5-year process, sometimes even more, because acquisition could take 2 to 3 years alone by itself. And so there's a little bit of difference where we have right-of-way and developer is coming forward in order to pay for all the improvements.
Oh, I was misunderstood then. I apologize for that. My entire query was a little bit off base. I apologize. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Copey. Mr. Caius?
yes, I think I could be incorrect, but my understanding is Algonquin has had a long-range plan to develop this particular area with this in mind, the more truck traffic and this design. So this is just a step in the process that has been in effect for 10 years more?
Yeah, at least 10, 20 years. I think the intergovernmental agreements that provided the access points were part of planning that was done between the village and the county 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, so it's not, that part of it, it's been there quite a while. It's just one step along the way.
Yep.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I have a motion and a second. We'll do a roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Copey,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Bras.
Yes. Okay, item 10, traffic operations report. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped over C. We have another resolution. This is approving amendment number 5 to the IGA with the Village of North Aurora regarding jurisdictional access and improvements to Randall Road from Orchard Road to Interstate 88. Motion and a second. Mr. Berman moves. Ms. Wolnicki seconds. Tom?
Yeah, this is an ongoing planning exercise. Just to bring a little bit of historical context, probably close to 20 years ago, again, the county and the village of Aurora entered into an intergovernmental agreement that dealt with access all the way from the Orchard Randall intersection down to the I-88 interchange. And that access agreement essentially regulated all the access points within this area. And much of the development activity has now occurred in this area, as Mr. Berman is very well aware of over the last couple decades. And so it's to the point, as part of the intergovernmental agreement, the county retained planning oversight, at least relative to the Randall Road right away. But this whole section of road, which used to be a county highway, was jurisdictionally transferred to the village of North Aurora. So the village of North Aurora has oversight of all the development activities there. The only thing that we had been watching, and this is a very unique situation, I don't know of many situations where we have planning oversight in regards to access on a road that's not ours. But as part of the transfer, the county board decided to do that for a time period. And it also helped to protect if there was a need to. At one point in time, we were looking at a regional bridge corridor of Oak Street tying in to 56. At best now, what may occur there, right now, it doesn't look like anything will occur there, but if something does occur, it would be a local bridge. Most of the area has been developed now. And so what we're looking at, what this Fifth Amendment does is it gives back the access planning oversight for Randall Road in this area. It does lay out some good engineering practices, but the oversight will go to the village since it's their jurisdiction.
I had a meeting with the mayor of North Aurora and the village administrator just in the last couple of weeks, and this is one of the things they requested. So staff was on top of it. But yeah, I think the important thing to realize is we're all very protective of Randall Road because it's the backbone of our transportation system. But once you cross Oak Street, the character of Randall changes quite a bit because Orchard, when it was constructed, kind of took that Randall traffic west and south to 88 and almost became, philosophically what we want to do with Randall, we now do with Orchard, and Randall south of Oak became more of a secondary street compared to north of that area. So this accomplishes what the village is asking of us. So I appreciate the quick work and would take any questions or comments. Okay, I have a motion and a second. We'll do the roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Opie,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin.
Martin, yes.
Yes.
Passes.
Okay, item 10, traffic operations report.
You have the report in front of you. I don't have anything to add unless you have any questions.
If you have any questions on the report on individual items, check with myself or Tom. Item 10B, a resolution. This approves an agreement with Transmart of Chicago for network operation management engineering services. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Caius, second
moved.
by
Kenyon will second.
Mr. Kenyon. Tom?
Yeah, this one and the next resolution, they're both general operational requirements. These are our management services for our network. And it's a 3-year contract, so the 465,000, I don't think I had that in the executive summary, my apology, but that 365,000 is for 3 years worth of network management engineering services, and staff is recommending approval.
Okay, and then when it says section 21 on both these resolutions, is that system-wide or a specific?
This is system-wide.
System-wide services. Okay, questions or comments? Hearing none, roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Copy,
Copy, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz.
Raz, yes.
Passes.
Okay, item C, a resolution. This approves an agreement with Idris of Santa Ana, California. Traffic signal operation management and engineering services, again, countywide. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Ms. Wojnicki, second by Mr. Caius. Tom?
Yeah, this is again, very similar, but it's more specific to the traffic signal operations. And this is also a 3-year contract, so that 850,000 is for 3 years of services. Staff is recommending approval.
Okay, questions or comments? Roll call.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Copy,
Copy, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz.
Raz, yes.
Passes.
Item 11, project implementation report. We'll move over to Steve Koffenbarger.
Before we get to photos, just one thing I want to mention in the IMP report is that we have a public meeting scheduled for November 17th for our Randall at US 20 Planning and Environmental Linkage study of the interchange. So please note that details regarding the meeting can be found on the project website. I
Okay.
can move to photos.
Thank you. Go ahead.
The first one is Long Meadow Parkway, Section C2, where we're showing some of the care of the plantings that occurred, watering and such during the warranty period, which lasts about a year. Item 2 is the westbound right turn lane. They're drilling holes for guardrail posts. Item 3 shows the concrete repairs being done to the piers on our structural rehab project. Next is the Kirk Dunham intersection reconstruction project in order to install a signal. My understanding, the signal is turned on now. So this shows the work being done there that, anyways. And then we have our orchard at Fabian, HSIP, which is our federal safety funds, doing electrical work for the radar speed signs and such. That's it for the photos.
In the radar speed signs, just tell the motorists what their speed is. It doesn't
Correct.
send them a ticket.
Unfortunately, no.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Steve on the presentation or the photos? Okay, if not, we'll move on to 11B, our first resolution approving an amendment with Huff and Huff of Oak Brook for on-call environmental engineering services. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Berman, second by Mr. Caius. Steve?
This next amendment has a lot to do with our existing Long Meadow Parkway C2 contract, which is from Sandbloom Williams to Illinois 25. KDOT designed the project along with all the other contracts associated with Long Meadow Parkway. And since federal funds were involved in this contract, it was an IDOT letting and an IDOT contract. IDOT signs on the dotted line. This project was let in April of 2020 by IDOT. IDOT awarded the contract to the lowest as-read bidder. During the life of the contract, IDOT decided to allow the general contractor to pursue the on-site treatment option for the lead and diesel fuel contaminated soils, which are within the alignment. KDOT then took the general contractor's on-site treatment plan and submitted that to the IEPA. The IEPA rejected that since the plan would also need to be combined with an application for a RCRA permit. And a RCRA permit is a Resource Conservation and Recovery Act permit. That permit takes approximately 6 months to obtain. And so we did not pursue, the contractor agreed not to pursue the on-site treatment option any further. During that, but subsequent to that, Kane County conducted additional soil borings and soil testing to help further define the limits of the contaminated soil. This information is helpful to the contract. Subsequent to that additional testing, IDOT deleted the lead waste removal pay items from the C2 contract. And as such, Kane County needs to design a new lead waste diesel fuel contaminated contract. Next month, we'll be bringing an amendment for our design engineer for those services and we'll also design a separate roadway contract also. And in the interim, we would like to also conduct additional soil borings, and that's where we gets us to this amendment. Staff's recommending additional soil borings and soil testing to improve the information that would be made available in this follow-up contaminated soil removal contract. The hope is, you provide additional information, it increases their level of comfort. You receive more competitive bids. So you're spending some additional dollars in hopes that it pays off in the bids. The additional soil sampling is estimated to cost $348,000 and change. We're also proposing an additional $50,000 to be made available for all other on-call activities that may be associated with Long Meadow Parkway or any of our other projects. Remember, this is an on-call contract to pick up wetlands, tree survey, or whatever we might need for our all of our projects. So staff's recommending approval of the amendment totaling $398,000 and $26. Sorry, I didn't say that right.
Okay, thanks, Steve.
398,026.
398,026. So essentially, IDOT was the lead on the lead remediation on this section. And they and the contractor felt that on-site treatment was feasible. It did turn out to be not feasible. So this, and you'll probably be seeing a few other things have to do with moving on to Plan B. And I will give staff credit. IDOT or KDOT staff kind of anticipated that this may happen and bolstered our budget somewhat in anticipation of this. So this resolution is the first of a few we may have to move on to that Plan B process. So questions or comments? Hearing none, a roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kobe,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki. Yes. Martin,
Martin, yes.
Raz,
Raz, yes.
passes.
Okay, item C, another resolution. This approves an agreement with BLA Incorporated of Itasca for on-call design and engineering services. Steve?
We went through QBS and selected BLA for these services. It's an $850,000 contract over the 3-year life of the term. It's an on-call contract, task order basis to conduct services like design a small intersection, review contract plans, complete barrier warrant analysis, survey, ADA improvements and such.
Okay, questions or comments? Roll call, please. I'm sorry, we need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Kenyon, second by
Berman.
Mr. Berman. Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Yes.
Kobe,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki. Yes. Martin,
Martin, yes.
Raz,
Raz, yes.
passes.
Okay, 11D, another resolution, our last resolution of the day, approves an amendment to the Phase 1 and 2 Engineering Services Agreement with Trans Systems Corporation. Need a motion and a second. Moved by Mr. Martin, second by Ms. Wojnicki. Steve?
Staff utilized QBS to select Trans Systems to design this bridge replacement project. Using his authority to authorize contracts under $30,000, Mr. Shadle approved an initial startup agreement for a wetland survey, which is a time-sensitive element, had to be completed by October 15th, and submit the IDOT environmental survey request. These items totaled $25,120. And now staff has completed negotiations for all of the other engineering services associated with this project for just under $220,000. And staff requests committee approval of this subsequent amended agreement for the remainder of the engineering services.
Okay, questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Berman,
Berman, yes.
Iqbal,
Iqbal, yes.
Kenyon,
Yes.
Caius,
Caius, yes.
Hopi,
Opie, yes.
Wojnicki,
Yes.
Martin,
Martin, yes.
Braz,
Raz, yes.
passes.
Okay, item 12, I need a motion and a second to put our various reports we've heard today on file.
Caius move.
Moved by Mr. Caius, second by Mr. Berman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Same sign. Reports are put on file. We have no need for executive session. Is there any new business anybody in person or online would like to discuss? Public comment on non-agenda items? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I would move we adjourn.
Mr. Kenyon moves to adjourn, second by Mr. Berman. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.